Hello, this video is about two main ways to measure the angles. The two ways are the degrees and radians. We will also discuss the four quadrants, and at the end will be a small talk about how to study. Now, the first way to measure angles is the degrees. And so here, the notation for the degrees is a little circle, just like we have for the temperature. So when you see 80 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees Celsius, that's the same exact notation. The little circle tells us that we are in degrees. To picture the degrees, we may use a circle because the circle has 360 degrees and the circle is divided into four even parts, and the parts are called quadrants because there will be four of them. Now, the quadrants are named using the Roman numbers and they are in counterclockwise. So this is the first quadrant, this is the second quadrant, the third, and the fourth. And usually what we see is we will see Q1, that means first quadrant, Q2 means second, Q3 means third, and Q4 means fourth. So if somebody says our angle is in the second quadrant, they will say our angle is in Q2, which means we're somewhere here. And later on, when we look at unit circle, we will sometimes be asked to look at a different quadrant than the first. Now, the positive degrees are in counterclockwise position. So if we wanted to see positive 45 degrees, we will move in this direction. If we wanted to see negative 45 degrees, we will move in the clockwise direction. And the sides, the angle is always formed using two sides. And the initial side, the starting side, is called initial, and the ending side is called terminal. Just like the terminal disease is the end of life, the terminal side is the end of the angle. Now, sometimes we talk about them, the triangles being in different quadrants, and we will do that we will discuss that in more details when we look at how to find the exact value of any of the 6 trigonometric functions if the angle is any multiple of 30 or 45 degrees. The second way to measure the angle is radians, and the radians are abbreviated as rad. And the 1 radian, by definition, is 180 divided by pi, and that comes out to be, let's see with a calculator. So here is our calculator, and if we take 180 divided by pi, the pi button is where the power is, second power, and so the 1 radian is approximately 57.3 degrees. So is about 57.3 degrees. The radians are measured using multiples of pi, and the circle has 360 degrees and it also has 2 pi. So if we take this equation and divide both sides by 2, then that means 1 pi is equal to 180 degrees. And that's a very key fact that we will have to use many times during the trigonometry class. In the next video, we will look at how to convert between the degrees and radians, but for now, we'll just know that there is 2 ways to measure the angles, radians and the degrees. And this is it for the ways of measuring the angle. Now, as far as the study, when we study for any test, it may be beneficial to create our own cheat sheet. So as we study, if we write down all the key formulas and our own explanations with our own examples, then that study sheet is going to be much more effective than looking through a textbook or somebody else's notes. If we are allowed to use a 3x5 card for the test, then it may be beneficial to write the formulas on it and actually use it for the homework, so that when we do the homework, if there is any information that we don't have on our card, then we can add it to it. So by the time we get to the test, the card will have all the key information that we need for us to do well. It is sometimes overwhelming to study for the test when you have to go through 100 or 200 pages of a textbook. But if we can condense that information into 5 or maybe even 10 pages of our own notes with just the key information, those 5 or 10 pages will be much better study guide than a textbook. Any learning takes time, and it is absolutely important to account for the time it takes to get good. If we are training for a marathon, let's say, we would not be trying to cram our training into 3 or 4 days. If we are looking to lose some weight, like 20 or 50 pounds, we would not be trying to diet and take it off in 2 or 3 days. And yet, we try the same strategy when we study. We have 2 or 3 days before the exam, we haven't looked at any of the math, and now we try to cram it in. Yes, cramming works to a point, but it is far, far inferior to actually building up the skill over time. And it doesn't take that much time or effort, it just takes consistency and practice. So if we know what we are doing and we're consistently trying it and looking at building up our cheat sheet, looking at creating our own note card that makes sense to us, that is by far the most efficient way to study and learn mathematics. It also works for any other subject, because every subject will have key terms, key definitions, key ideas that we have to remember no matter what subject it is, especially if we deal with some subjects that require much memorization, such as biology, anatomy, physiology, some physics, chemistry. All of them have many terms and the concepts that go with them, and it will take time and patience and practice to get good at them, but it's well worth the effort. And doing it over time, studying for 2 or 3 months before the test as opposed to studying 2 or 3 days for the final, would make a huge difference overall. And that's it for this video. Thanks for your time. If you have any questions, please let me know. Take care.